a pale mist clings to the valley, curling low across the grass like a living breath that refuses to disperse. It is early morning, the hour when night has not yet surrendered to day, and the world holds its breath in that fragile pause between darkness and dawn. The air tastes of damp earth and old wood, as if the centuries themselves have seeped into the soil. Somewhere far below, a narrow river murmurs unseen, carrying secrets whispered by the mountains. You stand on the ridge, gazing into a place that should not exist, a place where time, by some strange mercy or curse, has forgotten to move forward. The first glimmer of light reveals a scatter of rooftops, ancient and uneven, rising from the fog like relics from a dream. They do not shine or shimmer, they simply endure, their thatched crowns wet with dew, their stone walls darkened by generations of rain and smoke. The faint smell of burning wood drifts upward. A rooster crows, echoing faintly across the hollow, and it is a sound that could have belonged to any year in the last 700. There are no signs of modern life here. No hum of engines, no shimmer of glass or steel, no trace of the electricity that binds the rest of the world. Only stillness. Only the rhythm of something older, slower, infinitely patient. It is a place suspended in its own breath, untouched by the machinery of progress, untouched even by memory. To look upon it is to feel the strange weight of history settle in your chest, a pressure both tender and immense. You realize that if you were to descend into that valley, your watch would still tick, your pulse would still beat, but time itself would cease to matter. Every step would carry you backward, through layers of forgotten centuries, until even your thoughts began to slow and soften to the pace of the land. They call it, in hushed tones, the village that time forgot. Its name has vanished from most maps, its location shared only in fragments of rumor, as if the world itself conspires to keep it hidden. Some say a storm centuries ago cut it off from the outside world. Others claim its people simply turned away, choosing silence over the noise of empire and invention. Whatever the truth, the result is the same. A small world enclosed by mountains, self-contained, self-remembering, and utterly apart. The valley forms a natural bowl, its ridges thick with pine and beech. The sunlight that finally breaks through the mist moves cautiously, as though uncertain it has permission to enter. Each beam touches the old stones, the narrow paths, the wooden fences worn smooth by countless hands. The world begins to wake not with haste, but with reverence. The people within it rise like figures in a painting, slow, deliberate, half-shadowed by the dawn. From where you stand, the village seems almost unreal, too perfect in its stillness. It looks less like a place one could live and more like a memory that the earth has refused to let go. Somewhere, a bell tolls once, a hollow note that drifts across the fog. It sounds older than language, older than belief. In that single note, you can almost hear the centuries collapsing, the rise and fall of kings, the plagues, the wars, the endless turning of generations. Yet here, none of it seems to have mattered. The bell rings, and life continues exactly as it did when the world was smaller and the stars felt closer. You take a breath and listen. A cart creaks over uneven stones. The soft clatter of wooden wheels mingles with the distant bleating of sheep. The soundscape is thin, fragile, almost transparent. It is the music of a slower existence, where every noise carries weight. Even the wind seems to move carefully here, as though afraid to disturb the peace. There are places in the world where the modern age has carved its marks so deep that the past has no place left to hide, but this valley is the opposite. It has hidden so well that the present has forgotten to look for it. As the sun climbs higher, light spills through the fog and settles on the rooftops, revealing colors long muted by time. The stones glow faintly gold, the thatch deepens to amber, and the river at the valley's edge shimmers like quicksilver. You can almost imagine monks in coarse robes tending fields nearby, or merchants leading horses along the narrow tracks, or children gathering herbs for a healer whose name no one remembers. The air itself feels thick with presence, as though the ghosts of all who lived here have never truly left. They watch in silence, patient, protective, ensuring the balance remains undisturbed. You imagine what it would be like to live here, to wake without alarms, to measure the day not by minutes but by the slow arc of the sun. There would be no rush, no glare of screens, no hum of electricity. Life would unfold as it always has, gently, repetitively, with the rhythm of the seasons as its only clock. Bread would rise in stone ovens, hands would mend clothes by candlelight, and the silence between words would hold meaning deeper than speech. The thought is both comforting and unsettling. Comforting, because it feels pure. Unsettling, because it feels final, like stepping outside the current of time and realizing the river will not take you back. Down below, a figure emerges from one of the cottages, a woman in a wool cloak, carrying a wooden pail. She moves with the ease of someone whose steps have been repeated by generations before her. At the well, she draws water with slow, deliberate strength. Each motion seems rehearsed by centuries. You realize that what you are witnessing is not performance, not reenactment, but life as it was, and still is. The present moment feels elastic, stretching backward until you can almost sense the weight of the 1300s pressing lightly on your skin. The boundary between observer and participant begins to blur. And then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, a feeling settles over you. The recognition that time itself is not a straight line, but a circle. It loops, folds, returns. Here, in this forgotten valley, the circle has closed upon itself, sealing away a fragment of the medieval world like an insect trapped in amber. Outside these mountains, the world races forward. Cities glow through the night, machines speak in numbers, people forget the taste of silence. But here, silence reigns. The valley hums with the steady heartbeat of endurance. The smoke from the chimneys drifts upward in perfect stillness, as though it too refuses to fade. You realize that what you are seeing is not just a village but a living memory, a testament to what humanity once was, and perhaps still longs to be. In that awareness comes a strange peace, a calm that softens thought and slows breath. You close your eyes for a moment, and in the hush that follows, it feels as if the earth itself has exhaled. When you open them again, the fog has thinned, the sun has claimed the valley, and the day has begun. Yet even as the light strengthens, the feeling remains that you have stepped not into a place, but into a time that refuses to die. The road winds downward like a ribbon of dust, vanishing into folds of green and gray. It is not truly a road, more a suggestion of one, carved by centuries of hooves and footsteps, following the natural bends of the earth. The stones beneath your boots are slick with moss and time, each step echoing faintly in the silence. The air here feels heavier than it did above, rich with the scent of pine sap and wet soil. The forest closes around you in slow, watchful motion, the branches arching overhead like the vault of an ancient cathedral. No sound of engines, no human voices. Only the murmur of unseen streams and the whisper of leaves brushing against one another, like old pages turning in a forgotten book. The modern world feels impossibly far away now, as though it exists only in memory. You glance back once more, but the path behind has already vanished into mist. Ahead, the descent deepens, and the light shifts, gold to gray, gray to blue, until the world seems trapped in a permanent twilight. Somewhere beyond this quiet wilderness lies the place spoken of in half-truths and folklore, a village where centuries sleep beneath layers of tradition, untouched by progress. The farther you walk, the more the mind begins to question itself. You check your phone, there is no signal, not even a flicker. The device, suddenly useless, becomes absurdly modern in your hand. You put it away, almost embarrassed, and let the silence swallow you whole. The trail narrows until it allows passage for only one. Brambles claw at your sleeves. Your breath turns visible in the chill, and the crunch of boots becomes the only rhythm anchoring you to the present. Once in a while, the wind carries faint traces of sound, something that might be a bell or might only be imagination. The landscape unfolds in slow revelation, a fallen oak bridging a stream, the glint of water through the ferns, the carved face of a forgotten saint half buried in moss. Every sight feels ancient, yet somehow deliberate, as though the land itself were guiding you deeper. The stillness is not empty but alive, filled with the quiet attention of unseen things. Hours pass, or perhaps only minutes. Time here behaves strangely, elastic and indifferent. the light fades and the air grows colder. Somewhere up ahead, a thin thread of smoke twists into the air, pale against the dimming sky. You feel your pulse quicken, not from fear, but from that peculiar thrill that arises when the impossible begins to feel near. A few more turns, a few more cautious steps, and the trees part like curtains. Beyond them, the valley reveals itself in fragments. First the river, then the fields, then, faint and distant, the shape of clustered rooftops. A single note of awe escapes you, quiet and involuntary. You have crossed some invisible threshold, left the known world behind, and entered the whisper of another age. The descent continues along a narrow stone path bordered by wildflowers that seem too delicate for this forgotten terrain. The air carries the scent of wood smoke and something older, tallow, perhaps, or the faint trace of baked bread. You pause beside a weathered milestone, its markings eroded into illegibility. A low hum vibrates through the ground. It might be the river, or the earth itself breathing. You kneel, run your hand across the stone, and for a brief moment, you feel a shiver that is not from the cold. It is the sensation of standing where countless others have stood, travelers long gone whose footsteps still linger in the soil. The realization comes softly. This road was once the artery of a forgotten kingdom, a thread linking the living and the dead. As dusk settles, the sky becomes the color of ash and honey. The last light bleeds through the treetops, catching on your face, your hands, your breath. The silence thickens. You begin to hear faint noises that do not belong to the forest. The slow creak of wood, the distant clang of metal on metal, the echo of something rhythmic and human. The valley seems to breathe differently now. You follow the sounds, heart steady but cautious. The path bends sharply, and suddenly the forest falls away. Before you stretches an open plain, and beyond it, a cluster of dimly glowing lanterns. They flicker like stars that have descended to earth. There is no hum of electricity, no sharp light of neon, only the soft, wavering glow of fire behind oiled parchment. The first true sign of human presence, yet somehow it feels untouched by time. You approach carefully, each step deliberate. The earth beneath your boots is soft and uneven. You cross a narrow wooden bridge, its planks groaning under your weight, and hear water rushing below. The air is filled now with new scents, smoke, grain, and the faint sweetness of hay. A low stone wall marks the edge of the settlement. Beyond it, dark shapes move slowly, a horse shifting in its stall, a woman drawing water from a well, a child chasing a hen through the dirt. The scene is dim, blurred by mist and distance, yet the impression is unmistakable. The people are dressed in coarse fabrics, the kind once worn by peasants centuries ago. Their gestures are unhurried, almost ritualistic, as though life here follows a pattern unbroken since medieval times. You stop at the wall's edge and listen. The only voices are faint and melodic, rising and falling in tones unfamiliar to modern ears. You cannot tell whether they are speaking or singing. The sound tugs at something deep within you, a longing, a memory, perhaps even grief. For the first time, the enormity of what you are witnessing begins to settle in. This is not a museum, not a reconstruction, not an act of nostalgia. It is continuity. A living fragment of a vanished age, breathing quietly beneath the indifferent gaze of the stars. The road that brought you here now feels unreal, as if it too belongs to another existence. Behind you, the forest has already swallowed the way back, sealing it with darkness and fog. Ahead, the faint light of the village wavers, steady but distant. You take a deep breath and cross the final stretch of earth between you and the first gate. The wooden beams are rough, bound by iron that has rusted into the texture of blood. You touch the gate, half expecting it to crumble beneath your fingers. Instead, it holds firm as though acknowledging your presence. The world beyond it is quiet, alive, and impossibly old. You pause there for a long time, the stillness pressing against you from all sides. Somewhere deep inside, a modern part of you, the part that measures time by screens and notifications, grows uneasy. Yet another part, older and quieter, begins to awaken. The night air carries the faint crackle of a hearth and the smell of rain-soaked stone. You realize that with a single step, you will no longer be a visitor from the present but a trespasser in history. The thought is both terrifying and beautiful. The gate creaks faintly, moved by a breeze or by fate, and in that sound lies an invitation. You step forward and the world exhales. The fog begins to lift as dawn stretches across the valley, and for the first time, the village reveals itself in full. The light arrives slowly, as if reluctant to disturb the perfection of what it finds below. It touches the rooftops first, hunched, uneven, patched with straw and stone. Then it crawls down to the winding lanes, the little bridges, the gardens edged by wooden fences. Everything seems to belong to another world, another century. Smoke curls from low chimneys, rising in delicate threads that vanish into the pale sky. The scent of burning oak drifts through the still air, mingled with the faint sweetness of bread baking somewhere unseen. It is the aroma of life carried forward unbroken, from one generation's dawn to another's. You stand motionless, afraid even to blink, afraid that this vision might dissolve if you acknowledge it too quickly. The village lies cradled in the bowl of the valley, embraced by hills like gentle, watchful guardians. The roofs are uneven, some bowed under centuries of weather, others freshly thatched by hands that have inherited the craft from their ancestors. The walls are built of rough-hewn stone, patched with mud and lime, each house pressed close to its neighbor as if for warmth. No modern lines, no sharp edges, no sign of glass reflecting the sun. The windows are small, their shutters carved with simple, weathered designs, symbols of wheat, stars, and circles, the old languages of protection and prayer. Even the air feels heavier here, dense with stories that no one has written down. A narrow path winds through the heart of the village, its stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. A man passes along it, leading a cart pulled by a single ox. The wheels groan softly, leaving faint tracks in the damp earth. He wears a coarse wool tunic bound by a rope at the waist, and his face, though lined by age, carries a calm beyond comprehension. He doesn't look up as you watch him. Perhaps he hasn't even noticed you. Or perhaps he has, but sees nothing unusual in the presence of a stranger. Time here has long since blurred the boundaries between visitor and ghost. You listen as his voice murmurs to the ox in a dialect you can barely recognize, its rhythm ancient, its meaning buried beneath centuries of change. Yet it feels strangely familiar, as though your blood remembers even if your mind does not. Children appear next, barefoot and laughing, their voices bright against the stillness. They chase one another through the narrow lanes, carrying wooden hoops and bundles of reeds. Their laughter echoes against the stone, spilling into open windows where unseen mothers call them back in tones of both scolding and love. The simplicity of their joy feels untouched by the modern world, unhurried, genuine, sacred. Every gesture, every sound seems to belong to the rhythm of nature rather than the rush of clocks. Somewhere nearby, the steady clank of metal on metal rings out, a blacksmith at his forge. Sparks leap briefly through the open door of a small workshop. The glow from within is orange, not electric, and it paints the interior in warm, living firelight. The sound carries through the air, measured and patient, like a heartbeat that has never faltered. You take a few steps deeper into the village, feeling the ground change beneath your feet. The stones are uneven, slippery in places, yet they hold the faint warmth of the earth beneath. Every house you pass seems to lean toward you slightly, as if whispering its own quiet greeting. A woman steps out from one of the doorways, her face framed by a linen coif. She carries a wooden bowl filled with grain, scattering it across the yard where chickens scratch and peck. Her movements are steady and graceful, the product of repetition across 1,000 dawns. When she straightens, she glances toward you, eyes pale and steady, and for a heartbeat, the centuries between you seem to collapse. Then she turns away, untroubled, returning to her work as if nothing unusual has happened. The sun climbs higher, and the mist thins to wisps. The sound of the river reaches your ears at last, a slow, melodic gurgle threading through the center of the village. Its surface glitters like liquid silver, broken only by stepping stones and a small wooden bridge. On the far bank, a man bends over the water, washing his hands and face before beginning his day. His reflection ripples and reforms, like time itself refusing to hold still. The rhythm of life here is hypnotic, unbroken by haste or anxiety. Each task is done with intention, with the same respect one might give to prayer. You realize that the people here do not live in time as much as they live alongside it, keeping pace with it like an old friend. The marketplace lies at the center of the village, though it is less a place of trade than of gathering. Stalls made of rough timber hold baskets of apples, loaves of coarse brown bread, small bundles of herbs tied with twine. The air hums with quiet conversation, the tones soft and respectful. Coins are few, mostly people barter. A loaf of bread for a spool of thread, a bucket of milk for a length of cloth. This exchange feels not transactional but communal, as if each trade carries with it a blessing, a reaffirmation of trust. An old man seated nearby sharpens tools on a whetstone, humming an old tune without words. His hands are gnarled, his posture bent, but there is peace in his movements, the kind that comes from a life in harmony with one's surroundings. A bell tolls once from the church at the far edge of the square. Its sound rolls through the air, soft but commanding, gathering the moment into stillness. The villagers pause instinctively, bowing their heads or crossing themselves. You follow their gaze to the small chapel of stone and timber, its steeple crooked, its roof patched with slate. The bell itself is modest, its tones slightly uneven, yet the sound carries weight far beyond its size. It is the sound of continuity, of centuries layered into a single note. You can almost imagine the countless dawns it has witnessed, the births, the marriages, the funerals, the harvest feasts. It tolls now not to summon or warn, but to remind, the day has begun, and life continues as it always has. You walk farther until you reach the village edge, where the fields begin. The soil here is dark, rich, turned by wooden plows drawn by horses. Rows of wheat shimmer under the rising sun, and in the distance, a shepherd's call echoes faintly across the hills. It is a song rather than a shout, carrying both direction and comfort. The flock responds as though the sound itself were language. Beyond the fields, the forest looms, protective, eternal. You sense that the people rarely venture beyond it. Their world is complete within this circle, mountain, valley, field, and sky. To them, nothing lies beyond worth knowing. You look back once more toward the heart of the village. The smoke rises straight now, undisturbed by wind. The people move like parts of a single, ancient rhythm, each task flowing into the next. There are no signs of hurry, no machines to break the quiet. The entire scene feels impossibly fragile and yet enduring, like a candle flame that refuses to be extinguished by time. For a long while, you stand there, letting the image sink into you. The realization comes slowly but undeniably. You are not merely an observer of the past, you are standing inside it. The world around you hums softly, steady, eternal. Somewhere, a bell tolls again, and its echo folds gently into the rhythm of morning. The morning unfolds with a kind of quiet ceremony, each hour revealing another layer of the village's ancient rhythm. The people move through their day not as individuals rushing to tasks, but as parts of a single, continuous ritual that has outlived kings and kingdoms. Smoke rises from the communal ovens, thick and fragrant, carrying the scent of baking bread across the square. The sound of wooden wheels creaks along the lanes, mingling with the soft bleating of goats and the murmured greetings of neighbors. Every action here feels both purposeful and eternal. There is no waste, no hurry, no separation between labor and life. The day's work begins with the same reverence one might reserve for prayer. You follow the path toward the fields at the edge of the village, where a group of farmers bends low over the soil. Their hands are bare and calloused, their faces weathered by seasons that have no names here, only cycles. The plows are wooden, their blades dull from years of use, pulled by patient horses that move with the steadiness of ritual. The farmers speak little, communicating instead through glances and gestures. A pause to wipe sweat from a brow, a nod toward the horizon, a shared pull of the rope that guides the plow, all of it forming a wordless language born of necessity and understanding. The air hums with insects, the rustle of wind through wheat, and the rhythmic creak of leather harnesses. It is a sound older than any clock, a sound that belongs to the earth itself. Beyond the fields, near the river, women gather by the stones to wash clothes. The river's song mingles with their voices, low and melodic. They hum as they work, old tunes that repeat without beginning or end. The fabric, coarse and hand-woven, slaps against the stones in a steady rhythm. Water splashes, light catches on droplets that rise and fall like tiny beads of glass. Children play nearby, tossing pebbles into the current and watching them vanish beneath the ripples. Their laughter rings out, bright and pure, cutting briefly through the calm before being absorbed again by the valley's endless hush. The women pause now and then to share a quiet word, their smiles brief but genuine. Every gesture suggests familiarity, continuity, the shared pulse of lives intertwined for generations. Near the village center, the blacksmith's forge glows like the heart of the community. Inside the dim stone building, the air shimmers with heat. Sparks leap from the anvil, bright as stars, vanishing before they touch the ground. The blacksmith, a broad-shouldered man with soot-darkened skin, lifts his hammer in deliberate rhythm. Each strike resounds through the valley, a metallic heartbeat marking time not by hours, but by effort. The smell of iron and smoke fills the air. Hanging from the walls are tools older than memory, hammers, tongs, chisels, each one shaped by a craftsman who likely shares his blood. Outside, a boy waits patiently with a broken hinge, watching every movement of the blacksmith with rapt attention. In his eyes, you can see both curiosity and inheritance, the understanding that this knowledge will one day pass to him, as naturally as the rising of the sun. You wander next toward a small square where women sit spinning wool. Their wheels turn slowly, the faint whir of fiber twisting into thread, a sound almost hypnotic in its constancy. The wool comes from sheep raised in the hills. It carries the scent of grass and smoke. The women's hands move with precision born of repetition. Twist, pull, wind, repeat. One of them hums softly, and the others join in until the air itself seems to sway to the rhythm. The threads gather into skeins, dyed with herbs grown in small garden plots, indigo, madder, and walnut shell. Nearby, a loom rests beneath a window, its wooden frame worn smooth by generations. Through its patient labor, fabric emerges slowly, row by row, pattern by pattern, each piece unique yet timeless. The result will clothe the villagers through winter, as it has every year since memory began. As the sun climbs, the smell of food begins to weave through the air. From the communal ovens comes the rich scent of bread, the sharpness of smoke, the sweetness of grain. A group of villagers works together to tend the fire. One stokes the embers, another pulls loaves from the heat using long wooden paddles, while a child brushes ashes from the stones. The bread is thick and dark, its crust split and steaming when broken open. Each family receives its share, wrapped in linen and carried home with care. Meals here are not hurried but shared. You glimpse people gathered around wooden tables, their heads bowed not in haste, but in quiet gratitude. They speak little, but their eyes carry warmth. The act of eating feels less like nourishment and more like communion, sustenance for both body and spirit. The afternoon light softens, spilling through open doorways where artisans work in half-shadow. A potter shapes clay with hands that seem to move of their own accord, guided by muscle memory older than thought. The wheel turns slowly, steady as breath, and a vessel takes form, imperfect yet beautiful in its imperfection. Nearby, a carpenter planes a plank of oak, the scent of wood rich and comforting. Each stroke of his tool releases a soft curl of shavings, pale as parchment, that drift gently to the floor. There is no machinery, no noise beyond the quiet rhythm of creation. Each act of labor seems an offering, not to profit or progress, but to continuity, the sacred duty of keeping the village alive through the steady repetition of ancient skill. By evening, the village begins to quiet again. The fields lie golden under the setting sun, the livestock returned to their pens. The air cools, carrying the mingled scents of hay and wood smoke. The villagers gather outside their homes, exchanging a few final words before retreating indoors. You see candles flicker to life one by one, their light soft and golden against the dusk. Somewhere, a lute plays, a slow, plaintive tune that drifts through the air like a memory half-remembered. The melody belongs to no composer, no written score. It exists only here, passed from voice to voice, surviving the centuries as sound and emotion alone. You realize then that everything in this village, from work to worship, from bread to song, is a thread in one vast tapestry. Nothing is done for convenience, nothing for haste. The rhythm is cyclical, not linear, and time moves not forward but around. What was done yesterday will be done again tomorrow, and the repetition itself is sacred. The villagers do not resist the passage of time. They simply exist outside its current, their lives unfolding in harmony with the seasons rather than against them. You feel an almost painful longing, an ache for the stillness that hums beneath every movement. It is the sound of life stripped to its essence, ancient and enduring, a whisper of how humanity once lived, before noise, before speed, before forgetting. The elder waits at the edge of the village, sitting beneath the gnarled limbs of an ancient oak whose roots twist deep into the earth like the veins of history itself. His face is a map of time, lines etched by wind and sun, eyes clouded with years yet still sharp with understanding. When he looks at you, it feels less like an examination and more like a quiet acknowledgement of a shared secret, one that spans centuries and yet exists only in the present moment. There is no hurry in his movements, no need to impress or explain. He embodies patience itself, a living bridge between the past and the world you have just entered. Even before he speaks, you feel the weight of his knowledge, the kind that cannot be written in books or captured by fleeting memory. He gestures for you to sit beside him on a low stone bench, its surface smoothed by countless others who have done the same over the years. Around you, the valley stretches silent and eternal, the village's rooftops glowing faintly in the mid-morning light. The air carries the scent of earth, wood, and smoke, mingling into something that feels older than civilization. The river murmurs in the distance, a slow, deliberate song that seems to carry both history and prophecy. For a moment, the world outside, the roads, the cities, the clamor of modern life, feels impossibly distant. Here, in the company of the elder, you are immersed in a reality that belongs to no one age, a continuum of survival, memory, and tradition. He begins to speak, his voice low and melodic, each word deliberate, as though the syllables themselves hold power. He tells of the village's origins, tracing them back to a small feudal estate, a settlement built in the shadow of larger kingdoms. Wars, famine, and plague swept across the lands beyond the mountains, reshaping history and leaving empires in ashes. Yet this valley remained untouched, shielded by geography and chance. The elder's tone is neither boastful nor mournful. It is simply factual, imbued with the quiet reverence of someone who understands the delicate balance that allowed survival to continue uninterrupted for centuries. You listen, captivated, feeling as though the village itself is speaking through him. As he recounts the stories of ancestors, you sense the unbroken continuity of life here. Families have lived within these stone walls for generations, passing knowledge from parent to child, skill to skill, story to story. He speaks of births, marriages, and deaths with the same rhythm, highlighting the flow of life that persists despite external chaos. You learn of a winter when snow buried the valley entirely, forcing the villagers to rely on stored grains and preserved food. You hear of a summer when the river flooded its banks, and yet through ingenuity and cooperation, lives were saved and work continued. Every tale is a lesson, a reflection of resilience born of necessity and patience. In each story, the pulse of the past beats strongly, yet it does not dominate the present. It lives alongside it, unthreatening but insistent. The elder gestures toward the village, his hands steady despite their age. "See them," he says. "They move as their ancestors did because they have to. There is no choice but continuity here." His eyes travel over the blacksmith, the women spinning wool, the children chasing chickens through the streets. Each person carries within them the rhythm of the centuries, unaware perhaps, yet inextricably linked to what came before. The elder's voice softens. He tells you that this continuity was not maintained by isolation alone. It was choice, discipline, and respect for the land and one another that allowed the village to endure. The people did not need laws written on paper. Custom and memory were sufficient. Every action had meaning, every gesture carried weight, and every individual understood their place within the broader tapestry. You ask him how the outside world views them, and he smiles faintly, almost wryly. They call us backward, strange, quaint, he says. But it is not we who are strange. The world outside forgets itself too easily. Here we remember. He explains that even when outsiders occasionally wander into the valley, the villagers respond with calm and courtesy, never panic or anger. They are not afraid of discovery, only indifferent to intrusion. Their focus is the preservation of life as it has been lived for generations, and nothing from the outside can change that without invitation. The elder's words carry authority, not through command, but through the quiet demonstration of wisdom acquired over decades, even centuries. He rises slowly and begins to walk, gesturing for you to follow. Together, you move through the narrow lanes, past cottages that seem suspended between past and present. He points out details that would otherwise go unnoticed, the way a thatched roof has been repaired using only materials available within the valley, the intricate pattern of wooden beams that has endured for generations, the small carvings in door frames marking births, deaths, and harvests. Each explanation is accompanied by a story, often brief, sometimes profound, always human. You notice how each narrative connects the people to their ancestors, how every act of survival is honored not as labor but as continuation. The village itself becomes a living manuscript, with each resident a line, a paragraph, a chapter in an unending story. At the edge of the main square, the elder stops beside a small shrine carved into the rock. It is simple, rough stone, a wooden cross, a candle holder, but the reverence is palpable. He kneels, murmuring a few words in the old dialect, and you feel a hush fall over the space. The villagers passing by instinctively lower their heads, a quiet acknowledgement of the sacred, the eternal, and the human. Everything here, he whispers, has a purpose. Even silence has a duty. In this single sentence, you understand the depth of his philosophy. Life is measured not only in action, but in thought, in respect, in the care given to each moment. The past and present do not compete here. They coexist, folded seamlessly like the layers of earth beneath your feet. By the time the sun reaches its zenith, the elder has shared enough that you feel a profound sense of clarity, even as wonder continues to weave through your thoughts. You understand that the village is not merely surviving, it is living consciously in a way the modern world has largely forgotten. There is discipline, yes, but also beauty, connection, and humility. There is a knowledge that time is not a relentless tide to be fought or escaped, but a gentle stream in which one may immerse oneself, learning to move with its current rather than against it. You realize that this elder, in his quiet patience, embodies the spirit of the entire village. Unshaken, enduring, quietly triumphant over centuries of change. As you take a final look around, the elder smiles softly, a mix of warmth and resignation in his gaze. He returns to his bench beneath the ancient oak, and you feel the space of his presence linger even as you move on. The weight of his stories, the depth of his understanding, and the calm authority he exudes settle within you, leaving a sense of awe and humility. The afternoon sun hangs low, softening the edges of the village and casting long, gentle shadows across the cobblestones. The rhythm of life continues with measured ease, each movement deliberate, each task carried out with a kind of reverence that seems to slow the very air. Children chase one another through the narrow lanes, their laughter mingling with the occasional call of a goat or the gentle clatter of a cartwheel on stone. The sound is comforting, unhurried, a melody of living that has persisted for generations. Every face you pass tells a story, every pair of hands bears the evidence of labor, and every glance seems weighted with the understanding that life is both fleeting and eternal here. The village hums quietly, not with noise but with presence, the subtle vibration of existence itself. You wander toward the village's communal garden, where women and men bend over carefully tended plots of vegetables and herbs. Each plant appears to have its own space, its own importance, and the villagers work with an almost ceremonial care. One woman harvests carrots while murmuring soft instructions to a child beside her, A man tends to a line of cabbages, brushing dirt from their leaves with precise movements. The air smells of earth, of growth, of rain long absorbed into the soil. You notice the interplay between effort and patience, the way that every task, no matter how small, carries significance. This is not work done simply to survive. It is work performed with awareness, an acknowledgement of the connection between human hands, the land, and the generations that came before. Near the center of the garden, an elderly man shows a boy how to prune a small fruit tree. Each cut is deliberate, exact, done with the slow confidence of experience. The boy watches intently, his hands trembling slightly as he mimics the motion. Patience, the elder murmurs, his voice calm and measured. The tree will give, but only if you give it time. There is a rhythm to their work, a dialogue between the generations that requires no words beyond what is essential. Around them, other villagers move in similar patterns, watering, weeding, planting. You notice how each action seems to ripple outward, connecting the lives of everyone in the village. The community functions not as a collection of individuals, but as a single organism, alive in its own quiet way. The sound of a wooden bell signals midday, a note that carries over the rooftops and across the valley. The villagers pause instinctively, a moment of shared recognition threading through the space. Some cross themselves, others nod to their neighbors, but all participate in the unspoken acknowledgement that life is continuous, that time moves slowly but inevitably, and that every day contains its own sacred rhythm. From the forge, the blacksmith lifts his hammer and strikes once, a metallic echo that seems to punctuate the village's soft hum. Sparks leap from the anvil and fade into the air, marking work as both necessary and ceremonial. The blacksmith's apprentice watches closely, hands ready to adjust or repeat as required, learning the cadence that will one day be second nature. You notice children gathering by a small stream at the garden's edge, their bare feet dipping into the cool water. They scoop the river into small clay pots, letting it trickle through their fingers as they giggle and chase one another. The water is clean, fresh, and vital, the lifeblood of the village, untainted by distant industries or polluted by modern conveniences. The stream carries with it more than water. It carries history, having trickled through the valley for centuries. You watch as a boy tilts a small pot, letting the water fall back into the river in a controlled, almost ceremonial motion, as if acknowledging the gift it provides each day. There is a rhythm to play here as well, one that balances freedom with responsibility, innocence with awareness. Near the village center, a small wooden chapel begins to fill with soft light as the sun shifts westward. Candles flicker in the windows, and the faint scent of incense or dried herbs drifts out into the lanes. Villagers enter slowly, deliberately, their steps measured as though the act of moving is itself prayer. You notice how each person carries something small, a bundle of herbs, a token of thanks, a ribbon tied to a tool, gestures that transform ordinary objects into conduits of reverence. The interior is simple, the walls bare stone, the wooden benches worn smooth by generations. The sunlight filters through narrow windows, casting long beams that illuminate motes of dust, each one suspended like a star in a tiny, private galaxy. You realize that even in the quiet of worship, the village exists in harmony with itself, its rhythm unbroken, its essence unchanged. As the afternoon stretches on, the villagers begin to gather around the central square, a space defined not by architecture but by tradition. Here, stories are told, legends, recollections, warnings passed down through decades. An elder sits on a low stone step, and the children lean in close, eyes wide, listening intently. The stories are not hurried, not embellished for entertainment. Each is a lesson, a reflection of the village's values: patience, resilience, unity, respect for the land. The tales bind the community together, each listener understanding their place within the narrative and their responsibility to pass it on. Adults listen as well, their faces showing concentration and recognition, a silent acknowledgement that these stories are the veins through which the lifeblood of the village flows. You wander toward a small wooden bridge spanning the river, where a fisherman tends to nets spread across the planks. He moves with quiet precision, untangling lines, checking knots, adjusting weights. Each movement is deliberate, part of a careful sequence learned from his father and his father before him. The river flows steadily beneath him, its current neither rushed nor idle. He looks up briefly, offering a nod and a small smile, the kind that carries understanding rather than casual friendliness. Here, each person knows their role, not through obligation but through intimate familiarity with the world around them. Every action has consequence, and every choice is measured against centuries of experience. The sun begins to dip toward the horizon, painting the valley in hues of amber and gold. Shadows lengthen, and the air cools slightly, carrying with it the scent of soil, wood, and distant smoke. Villagers begin to return home, moving through the lanes with steady, unhurried steps. The blacksmith sets down his tools, the children cease their games, and the women close the shutters on their homes. There is a sense of completion, not from exhaustion, but from fulfillment. The day has been honored, tasks have been performed, and the rhythm of life has continued as it always has. You feel the pull of this rhythm, the quiet insistence of a life lived deliberately, with awareness of the past, respect for the present, and preparation for the future. As night approaches, the first stars appear, faint and patient, above the mountains surrounding the valley. The evening descends slowly, draping the valley in a soft, muted glow. The sun sinks behind the distant hills, and the shadows lengthen across the village lanes, curling around the edges of houses and gardens like smoke from the hearths. There is a palpable stillness, not oppressive but full of quiet purpose. The villagers move with calm deliberation, finishing the day's tasks with the same care that has carried their ancestors through centuries. Women close shutters and sweep the doorways, children gather small bundles of firewood, and the men return livestock to pens, checking gates and fences as they go. Each motion is precise, measured, and unhurried, a part of the evening ritual that seems as old as the stones beneath their feet. Along the river, the water catches the last light of the setting sun, glimmering like molten gold as it winds through the village. A lone fisherman pulls in his nets, the rhythm of his movements slow and steady. He lifts the net, lets it drip back into the current, and repeats, as if in quiet conversation with the river itself. The current responds with a gentle murmur, a sound that has echoed through this valley for centuries. Children watch from the riverbank, their faces glowing with curiosity, yet they remain respectfully distant, aware of the balance between work and play. The river is more than water here. It is life, history, and memory all flowing together. You realize that every interaction, however small, is guided by an instinctive understanding of harmony, an awareness that the world must be respected to endure. The blacksmith's forge burns softly as twilight deepens, sparks dancing from the anvil like fireflies suspended in time. He strikes the metal with rhythm and care, the sound resonating across the square, mingling with the low murmurs of returning villagers. His apprentice works alongside him, learning each movement with focused attention, internalizing lessons passed down from father to son for generations. There is no hurry, no need to rush. The process itself is the education. The glow from the forge illuminates the blacksmith's hands and face, casting shadows that shift gently across the worn stone walls. In this moment, labor and artistry converge, and you sense that the village values not speed or efficiency, but mastery and presence, the full immersion of self into action. The communal ovens release a rich, comforting aroma into the air, signaling that evening meals are nearly ready. Villagers gather small portions of bread and vegetables, their movements calm and synchronized. Families assemble around low wooden tables, breaking bread and sharing stories in hushed tones. The conversation is gentle and deliberate, each word chosen with care, each gesture meaningful. There is no rush to finish, no need to speak over one another. The act of sharing the meal itself is the point, an affirmation of life, community, and continuity. You notice the subtle gestures of affection, hands lightly resting on shoulders, nods of approval, smiles exchanged silently, that communicate more than words ever could. The warmth of the fires inside the homes complements the sense of togetherness, creating a cocoon of security and belonging. Children are sent to bed earlier than you might expect, but the night does not descend into silence immediately. Outside, the remaining villagers move through the lanes, lighting lanterns that glow softly against the deepening darkness. The lamplight flickers over stone walls and cobblestones, casting long, gentle shadows that seem almost alive. A few elders sit quietly on doorsteps, observing the day's end and offering words of advice to those passing by. There is a rhythm to this transition from activity to rest, a deliberate slowing down, a preparation for the night that honors the natural order of the world. Every motion, every sound, every shadow is part of the unspoken ritual of closure and reflection. In the chapel, candles flicker, illuminating simple stone walls and the worn wooden pews. The priest moves slowly through the space, performing rites that have been unchanged for generations. Villagers enter quietly, bowing their heads, offering prayers, or simply standing in silent reflection. The light of the candles dances across their faces, revealing features softened by experience, etched by time, yet filled with calm dignity. The service is brief but profound, a recognition of life's continuity, the impermanence of individual days, and the endurance of the community. You feel a quiet awe in observing this, as if witnessing the collective heartbeat of the village expressed in ritual and reverence. Outside the chapel, the valley grows darker, and the first stars appear, faint but patient. The villagers retreat into their homes, each door closing softly behind them, sealing in warmth, light, and life. From within, the glow of lamps and hearths spills onto the streets, reflecting the faint outlines of passing figures. Occasionally, a voice carries from a doorway, a lullaby sung to a child, a gentle conversation between neighbors, but mostly, the village breathes in quiet harmony. The night air is cool and still, carrying the scent of earth, wood, and the faint hint of smoke from the hearths. It is a night untouched by hurry or urgency, a night where time itself seems to slow, allowing the observer to feel its weight and texture. You wander through the empty lanes for a moment, taking in the deep quiet. The sounds of the village, once so full of life, now muted, linger in your mind, creating a sense of continuity between day and night. The light from the windows and lanterns glows like scattered stars fallen to earth, soft and comforting. You sense the presence of the villagers even when they are not visible, their routines and rituals echoing through the stones, the river, and the trees. Each element of the village seems connected, a living organism in which every part supports the whole. The understanding settles over you like a gentle tide. Here, life persists not by force or technology, but through patient rhythm, care, and respect for the world and for each other. As you finally rest by the riverbank watching the last light fade from the sky, you feel an overwhelming sense of awe and reverence. The village, bathed in the soft glow of lanterns and stars, appears timeless. It is a place where life is simple yet profound, ordinary yet sacred. Every sound, movement, and gesture carries meaning, shaped by centuries of care and continuity. You understand, in a way that transcends words, that this village has endured because it honors not only the past, but the present, the cycles of nature, and the interwoven lives of its people. The night settles fully around you, serene and infinite, and in this tranquility, you feel the profound heartbeat of a place where time itself seems to pause. Night deepens over the valley, and the village is bathed in the soft, silver glow of moonlight. Shadows stretch long and delicate across cobblestones and rooftops, emphasizing the textures of stone, wood, and thatch that have endured for centuries. The air is cool, carrying the subtle fragrance of herbs drying in windows, of smoke drifting from chimneys, and of earth slowly releasing the warmth it held throughout the day. A profound stillness rests over the village, punctuated only by the occasional low call of an animal or the distant murmur of the river threading through the valley. It is a silence that feels alive, as if the village itself is breathing, exhaling a calm that touches every corner, every stone, and every heart. You wander through the lanes, taking in the gentle rhythm of nocturnal life. Even in the quiet of night, the village is not empty. A few figures move slowly, tending the hearths, checking on animals, or walking from one home to another to offer help or a word of guidance. Their movements are purposeful but unhurried, each step a part of a pattern that has been repeated for generations. The lamps they carry cast a soft glow, illuminating walls and doors in a way that feels both intimate and eternal. It is not a glow meant to assert dominance over the darkness, but rather a gentle acknowledgement of presence and care, a continuation of the day's work carried into the night. The sound of the river is more pronounced at this hour, its water catching the moonlight and reflecting it in a gentle, silvery shimmer. You pause at the small wooden bridge, listening to the soft gurgle as the current flows around stones worn smooth by time. Along the banks, reeds sway lightly in the breeze, rustling almost like whispers. You notice a solitary fisherman, moving with quiet precision as he checks a net left to soak, his movements synchronized with the steady murmur of the river. Each action is meditative, a dialogue with nature, a demonstration of patience and care. In this stillness, the line between work and contemplation blurs, as though life itself is one continuous, sacred practice. Through the village square, you see the flickering lights of windows, each home a small sanctuary. Families are gathered inside, performing the evening rituals that have been passed down through countless generations. Children sit quietly by their mothers, learning the rhythms of daily life through observation and gentle instruction. The smell of bread, herbs, and wood smoke drifts into the street, intertwining with the cool night air. From a distance, the soft strum of a lute or the muted hum of a song may reach you, carried from one home to another, echoing off the stone walls. Even music here is deliberate, gentle, designed to soothe, teach, and connect. It reminds you that art, labor, and life are not separate entities but threads in a single, continuous tapestry. Near the chapel, a single candle flickers in a window. You notice a small figure kneeling inside, hands folded, lips moving in quiet prayer. The simplicity of the interior, a few worn pews, stone walls, and a small wooden cross, belies the depth of devotion present. The villager's faith is not displayed for spectacle or performance. It exists as a personal, lived experience, intertwined with every action and thought. Outside, the shadows of trees and buildings sway gently with the night wind, creating patterns that seem almost alive. There is a sense that every element of the village, from stone to soil to living being, participates in a silent, ongoing hymn of existence. As the night deepens, the communal ovens grow quiet, the hearths in homes burn lower, and the last of the day's labor is completed. Yet the village does not sleep all at once. Small acts of care continue, checking on a newborn, feeding a barn animal, adjusting a window shutter against the rising night breeze. These minor rituals, performed without ceremony or urgency, reinforce the continuity of life, demonstrating that even in rest, presence matters. There is a harmony here that defies hurried logic, a balance between activity and calm, necessity and ritual. Every gesture, no matter how small, contributes to the ongoing story of the village as it has for centuries. The children who were restless during the day now lie in beds woven from straw and wool, drifting into sleep with the faint sounds of the village as lullabies. You notice the elder from earlier in the day, sitting once more beneath the ancient oak. His eyes are closed, his posture relaxed, yet there is a sense of vigilance, as if he communes with the night itself. The rhythm of life is slower now, measured by breaths, by heartbeats, by the faint murmur of the river and the soft rustling of leaves. Time here has its own cadence, dictated not by clocks but by observation, patience, and respect for cycles both human and natural. From the edge of the village, you can see the surrounding hills, dark and imposing against the star-strewn sky. The landscape seems to cradle the village, protecting it while also emphasizing its isolation. It is clear why this place has remained untouched by modernity. Geography, yes, but more importantly, the people themselves are committed to preservation, not by force, but by careful, conscious choice. The valley functions as a self-contained universe, each life linked to another, each action reinforcing continuity, each day seamlessly following the last. The night accentuates this interconnectedness, allowing the patterns of existence to emerge with clarity. As you continue your walk, the flicker of a lantern catches your eye near the blacksmith's forge. Though most labor has ceased, a single apprentice tends to a small task, hammering gently, listening to the echoes of the day. It is a lesson in diligence, patience, and respect for craft, values that transcend generations. Even under moonlight, the work is deliberate, quiet, and meaningful. It is not done for efficiency or recognition but for the act itself, for the rhythm it maintains, for the continuity it ensures. This small, almost imperceptible persistence encapsulates the essence of life in the village. Each movement matters, each contribution strengthens the fabric of the community, and each gesture affirms the past while sustaining the present. Finally, you find a place to sit near the river, watching as the moonlight glimmers on the water's surface. The village around you breathes in quiet harmony, a living organism in perfect balance with the land and sky. You feel the weight and the peace of centuries pressing gently upon you, a sense that life here has been, and will continue to be, measured not in hours or days, but in attention, care, and continuity. The night is complete, serene, and unbroken. In this profound stillness, the village becomes more than a place. It is a living meditation, a testament to human endurance, wisdom, and the beauty of deliberate, timeless existence. The first hints of pre-dawn light stretch across the valley, delicate and pale, brushing the rooftops with a soft glow that promises a new day. Even in this early hour, the village is not silent. A few villagers stir, moving with careful precision through familiar routines. Doors creak softly as they open, and the faint clatter of tools or the occasional low murmur of voices threads through the cool air. There is no urgency, only a steady rhythm that has guided this community for centuries. Each movement seems purposeful, a small but essential contribution to the ongoing continuity of life. Here, even the waking of the village is a ritual, performed with reverence and quiet attention. Near the communal ovens, a woman begins tending the embers, coaxing flames back to life for the day's first bread. Her movements are gentle but practiced, each adjustment deliberate. She lifts a long wooden paddle, checking the loaves left from the previous day, sliding them carefully from the heat. The smell of warmed bread rises into the air, mingling with the earthy scent of the soil and the faint mist of morning dew. Children appear at the doorway, eyes heavy but curious, observing the motions that will soon become familiar to them. They imitate small gestures, sweeping the doorstep, arranging bundles of firewood, carrying water from the well. Through observation and subtle guidance, they are being initiated into the life of the village, learning that even the simplest actions carry meaning. The blacksmith is already at the forge, hammer in hand, though the day is still young. Sparks leap from the anvil with each strike, briefly illuminating the darkened interior and casting dancing shadows across the walls. He works methodically, shaping tools and repairing implements left from the previous day, the sound of hammering resonating like a heartbeat across the empty streets. His apprentice mirrors his movements, concentrating on the rhythm and weight of each blow. Here, skill is not taught in haste but absorbed slowly, patiently, until it becomes instinct. Every strike of metal against metal reinforces not just the craft, but the unspoken values of patience, diligence, and respect for work that the village has upheld for generations. The river glimmers faintly in the early light, a silver thread weaving through the valley. Villagers gather near its banks, washing dishes, filling pitchers, and tending to small tasks that cannot wait. A man kneels to examine the water, ensuring that it is clear and suitable for daily use, a practice repeated so often that it has become instinct. Children gather stones and watch them ripple the surface, laughing softly as the water responds. The river carries not just water but continuity, flowing past homes and fields, beneath bridges and through memories. It is a silent witness to generations, an ever-present partner in the village's ongoing story. The careful tending of its waters reflects the villagers' understanding that survival is inseparable from respect for the natural world. From the hill above, you watch the fields awaken. The farmers begin to emerge, moving with deliberate ease toward their tasks. Wooden plows are readied, animals harnessed, and the soil inspected with practiced eyes. Conversation is sparse, yet communication thrives through glances, gestures, and the shared knowledge of long experience. Hands, hardened and precise, adjust harnesses, check lines, and smooth the earth. Every action matters, and the rhythm of labor is both physical and meditative. Work is not just necessity here, it is a dance with the land, performed in harmony with the sun, the soil, and the seasons. In the garden, women bend over rows of herbs and vegetables, tending each plant with a care that borders on devotion. Their hands move with skill, pruning, watering, and harvesting in a pattern that has been repeated for decades, even centuries. Conversations are quiet, deliberate, interspersed with guidance offered to younger villagers who watch and imitate. Small lessons in balance, observation, and patience are imparted as naturally as breathing. The garden thrives not from haste or force but from meticulous attention and reverence for the cycles of growth and decay. Herbs are selected, dried, and stored, vegetables are gathered with care to preserve freshness, and each action is performed in acknowledgement of the interconnectedness of life. Near the village square, a small bell begins its morning toll, soft and measured, signaling a time-honored transition. Villagers pause, adjusting their work or stepping briefly to mark the sound, as if responding to a shared heartbeat. There is a rhythm here, subtle yet insistent, that governs daily life, an unspoken understanding that the day begins not with chaos or urgency, but with awareness and intent. Even the youngest children recognize it, their movements slowing and aligning with the pulse of the community. The bell is more than a signal, it is a reminder of continuity, of order, and of the shared experience that binds the village together. As the sun rises further, golden light spills across rooftops and fields, illuminating the textures of thatch, stone, and wood in a warm embrace. Smoke from hearths spirals upward, mingling with the cool morning air. Birds begin their songs, insects stir, and the valley comes fully alive, yet it does so with a gentle, deliberate pace. The villagers move as one, not hurriedly, not chaotically, but in concert with one another and with the natural rhythms surrounding them. Each day here is a continuation of the last, an unbroken chain of small, meaningful actions that have carried generations safely through time. By mid-morning, the square becomes a hub of quiet activity. Some villagers tend to communal tasks, repairing fences, tending the small marketplace, or preparing materials for craftwork. Others return from early chores, sharing brief greetings, nods, or smiles. There is no rush, yet a strong sense of purpose permeates every action. Work is valued not for speed or efficiency, but for the care, attention, and integrity with which it is performed. In each glance, gesture, and motion, the unbroken legacy of the village is evident, a legacy grounded in respect, patience, and harmony with the world around them. Even in the first hours of the day, you understand that the village operates according to a rhythm that is deliberate, enduring, and deeply human. Life here is measured not by modern constructs of time, but by the interplay of task, observation, and reflection. Each person contributes to the whole, not through coercion or instruction, but through understanding and shared purpose. As you continue to observe, the significance of continuity becomes undeniable. The village survives and thrives not because of isolation alone, but because of a conscious, patient, and unhurried commitment to living in harmony with one another, the land, and the cycles of time itself. The sun has climbed higher, bathing the valley in a warm, golden light that illuminates every corner of the village. The air is filled with the gentle hum of activity, each sound precise, measured, and purposeful. Villagers move through their routines with a deliberate grace, carrying out tasks that have been perfected over generations. There is an almost hypnotic rhythm to the way they work, speak, and even pause, a cadence that mirrors the steady flow of the river and the slow sway of the trees. Every motion, every glance, and every word is purposeful, yet performed with a calmness that suggests centuries of repetition and refinement. In the center of the village, the square is alive with subtle motion, an orchestrated harmony of labor and life that feels both ancient and immediate. Near the communal ovens, women move fluidly as they knead dough and tend to vegetables, their hands skilled from years of practice. Each loaf of bread is formed with care, each bundle of herbs tied with precision, and each movement carries an unspoken acknowledgement of tradition. Children gather nearby, observing and occasionally assisting, learning the delicate balance between work and observation. The adults guide them with gentle instruction, allowing mistakes but using them as lessons in patience and awareness. Through this seamless transmission of knowledge, the younger generation becomes intertwined with the daily rituals of the village, absorbing the rhythm of life as naturally as they breathe. The blacksmith's forge emits the deep, resonant sound of hammers striking metal. Sparks fly upward in brief, fiery arcs, illuminating the faces of the blacksmith and his apprentice. Their motions are synchronized, a careful dance honed over countless hours of practice. Each blow is deliberate, each adjustment precise, a demonstration of mastery that blends functionality with artistry. Tools, farm implements, and small pieces of metal are shaped not simply to serve immediate need but to honor a tradition that spans generations. The apprentice watches closely, internalizing the flow of movement, the weight of the hammer, and the rhythm of the craft. In these moments, labor transcends mere survival. It becomes a meditation, a dialogue with history, and a testament to continuity. By the river, villagers are engaged in daily chores that, while seemingly ordinary, hold deep significance. Water is drawn, washed, and carried with care, each action performed in mindful acknowledgement of its necessity. A fisherman adjusts his nets, the gentle murmur of the river accompanying each precise movement. Children play along the banks, but even in their laughter, there is an innate respect for the space and the flow of life around them. The river itself feels alive, a constant yet ever-changing presence that sustains and teaches the village. Its waters reflect the sky, the trees, and the passing figures in a shifting mosaic that mirrors the balance and continuity of life. In the gardens, rows of vegetables and herbs stretch in neat lines, meticulously maintained by the villagers. Each plant is tended with a combination of knowledge, observation, and care, ensuring that the cycles of growth are respected and optimized. Elderly women kneel in the soil, guiding younger hands, pointing out subtle signs of disease or ripeness, demonstrating the knowledge that has been accumulated over generations. The work is physical, yes, but also contemplative. It embodies the village's understanding that survival is not merely about effort, it is about attentiveness, awareness, and harmony with the rhythms of the natural world. Near the hilltops, fields of crops sway gently in the breeze. Farmers move deliberately, checking rows for damage, adjusting irrigation channels, and ensuring the health of the soil. Their work is both practical and meditative, a balance of observation, intuition, and labor. Even small tasks, repairing a fence, carrying water, pruning a branch, are approached with care, each one contributing to the stability and continuity of the village. Conversation among the villagers is quiet, functional, yet warm. Instructions are exchanged without urgency, and guidance is offered with patience. Here, communication is as much about teaching and observation as it is about conveying information. The village square itself serves as a hub, not of chaos, but of measured interaction. A few elders sit upon stone benches, observing the flow of life, offering advice when sought, and occasionally sharing stories that impart lessons through example rather than lecture. Children pass by, some carrying small tasks, others stopping briefly to listen or exchange a glance of understanding. There is a fluidity in these interactions, a seamless integration of labor, learning, and social cohesion. Every movement, whether physical or social, reinforces the interconnectedness of the community, strengthening the bonds that have allowed the village to endure for centuries. The scent of cooking fills the air as the day progresses, a subtle yet constant reminder of sustenance and home. Meals are prepared with care, ingredients sourced from the fields, gardens, and local animals. Cooking is not rushed. It is a ritual, an act of mindfulness that nourishes both body and spirit. Villagers gather to share food, offering guidance and learning to the young, reinforcing the principles of care, respect, and patience. Even small exchanges, a nod of approval, a smile, a comment on the quality of a loaf or stew, serve as reinforcement of the communal values that underpin every aspect of life. By late morning, the rhythm of the village is fully established, a delicate balance of labor, observation, teaching, and reflection. The blacksmith pauses to adjust tools, the gardener inspects plants, the farmer straightens a line of crops. Even minor acts, cleaning a window, sweeping a doorstep, feeding an animal, are performed with precision and care, demonstrating the village's commitment to continuity. This meticulous attention to detail ensures that each day is meaningful and contributes to the preservation of life as it has been lived for generations. There is a profound satisfaction in observing these cycles, understanding that life here is not measured by speed or volume, but by presence, awareness, and the unbroken transmission of knowledge. In these mid-morning hours, the village reveals its extraordinary resilience. There is no chaos, no distraction, only a measured, purposeful flow of activity where every individual understands their role and their contribution to the larger whole. Life is deliberate, yet natural, disciplined, yet gentle. The village exists as a living testament to the enduring power of patience, continuity, and conscious effort. You sense that this balance, cultivated over centuries, is the true foundation of their survival, and that it is preserved not by force, isolation, or luck, but by a quiet, collective commitment to living deliberately in harmony with the land, each other, and the rhythms of time itself. The afternoon settles gently over the village, the sun spilling a soft, warm light across rooftops and fields, highlighting the textures of stone, wood, and thatch that have endured for centuries. Shadows stretch lazily, elongating the narrow lanes and accentuating the subtle undulations of cobblestones worn smooth by countless footsteps. There is a tranquil energy in the air, a sense of purpose without urgency, as the villagers move through their daily routines with deliberate care. Every gesture, every glance, every step carries meaning, part of a rhythm established over generations. The day's work continues, but it is neither frantic nor pressured. It is measured, intimate, and intentional, a reflection of a community that thrives on continuity and presence. In the gardens, the women tend to the rows of herbs and vegetables with the same meticulous care that has defined these spaces for decades. Each plant is examined, trimmed, or watered according to knowledge passed down through countless hands and years. One woman pauses to inspect a row of carrots, her fingers brushing lightly over the soil, feeling for moisture, temperature, and growth. Nearby, a younger girl mimics her movements, her hands learning the subtleties of care, guided by soft instruction and gentle correction. The garden is a classroom as much as it is a source of sustenance, teaching patience, observation, and respect for life in forms both visible and subtle. The blacksmith's forge resonates with steady rhythm, the clanging of hammer on metal punctuating the soft hum of the village. Sparks leap from the anvil, briefly illuminating the blacksmith's face, etched with lines of concentration and experience. His apprentice mirrors each movement, learning the craft with careful attention, internalizing the weight of the hammer, the cadence of each blow, and the subtle feedback of metal against stone. Here, the act of creation is inseparable from meditation and education. The tools and implements shaped in this forge will serve the village, and in their making, generations are linked together, a living chain of skill, labor, and tradition. Across the river, the water flows steadily, reflecting the changing light of the afternoon. A fisherman tends his nets, the motion slow and deliberate, as if the river itself sets the pace. Children gather along the banks, some skipping stones, others watching the gentle ripple of water, absorbing lessons of patience and attentiveness. The river is more than a resource, it is a teacher, a constant presence that demands respect and careful interaction. The villagers understand this, treating each interaction with the water as an act of awareness, reinforcing the delicate balance between human life and the natural world. Near the square, elders sit quietly on stone benches, observing the ebb and flow of activity. Their eyes are attentive, soft, yet discerning, capturing details of movement, expression, and action. They offer guidance when needed, correct a misstep, or simply smile, affirming a job well done. Their presence is subtle but essential, a living bridge between past and present. Children and adults alike learn from these observations, internalizing lessons that are rarely spoken but always understood. Each moment of observation, each small correction, contributes to the careful cultivation of knowledge, values, and community cohesion. The communal ovens release a faint, comforting aroma as bread and herbs are prepared for the evening meal. Villagers move to collect ingredients, measure portions, and begin the careful preparation that has been perfected over generations. There is no rush, no distraction, only focus and attention, an almost meditative quality to their work. As food is prepared, the rhythm of the village continues, a seamless integration of necessity, tradition, and ritual. Children watch, learning not only the techniques but also the underlying principles of patience, care, and respect for sustenance. In the fields, farmers move through the rows of crops with practiced ease, inspecting each plant, adjusting irrigation channels, and tending to animals. Their work is both practical and contemplative, each action deliberate, each decision made with experience and intuition. Conversations are quiet but meaningful, exchanges of advice, encouragement, or gentle correction. Every action reinforces the communal understanding that labor is not merely for survival but for the maintenance of a delicate balance that ensures life continues harmoniously. Here, the work is both physical and spiritual, an acknowledgement of human responsibility within a broader ecosystem. Along the lanes, children play quietly, their movements contained within the rhythms of village life. Games are gentle and observational, filled with moments of learning and imitation. The sounds of laughter are soft, unhurried, integrated into the larger symphony of daily life. Adults occasionally pause to watch, offer guidance, or smile, reinforcing a sense of belonging and interconnection. Even in play, the lessons of continuity, attention, and patience are present, subtly woven into each interaction, each step, and each gesture. By mid-afternoon, the sun casts long, warm shadows across the village, softening the colors and textures of the buildings and streets. Light spills over the river, glimmering on the surface as it flows gently past homes, gardens, and fields. Villagers pause briefly to rest or observe, catching their breath and appreciating the subtle beauty of their surroundings. Even these pauses are purposeful, moments of reflection and quiet awareness that enrich the day and reinforce the sense of interconnectedness that permeates the community. As the afternoon deepens, the village square becomes a quiet hub of social and practical interaction. Elders exchange knowledge, neighbors share tasks or observations, and children navigate the space with careful attentiveness. Every interaction is deliberate, grounded in respect and shared purpose. Even minor acts, handing a tool, sharing a story, or adjusting a basket, reinforce the web of connection that sustains the village. It is in these small gestures, repeated countless times across generations, that the true resilience and continuity of the community are revealed. By late afternoon, the rhythm of labor begins to taper, transitioning toward preparation for evening. Tools are cleaned, fields inspected one last time, animals secured, and homes readied for night. The villagers move in unison, guided by centuries of routine, experience, and shared understanding. The sun begins to lower, painting the valley in warm, soft hues, emphasizing the harmony and balance of life within this timeless place. In these final hours of daylight, the village embodies a living meditation, a testament to patience, care, and the enduring power of deliberate, attentive existence. The sun dips lower toward the horizon, spilling a soft, amber glow across the village. The long shadows stretch across cobblestone streets and wooden doorways, painting a canvas of light and shadow that feels almost sacred. The air is cooler now, carrying the faint scent of smoke from hearths, mingled with the earthy aroma of tilled soil and ripening herbs. A subtle hush settles over the village, the kind of silence that is not empty but rich with anticipation, reflection, and the quiet rhythm of life. Even as activity slows, the pulse of the village is unmistakable, present in the movement of animals returning to their pens, in the soft footsteps of villagers tending their final tasks, and in the whisper of wind through the trees. Inside homes, fires are stoked and bread is removed from the ovens, releasing a warm, comforting scent that wraps the village in domestic familiarity. Families gather around tables, arranging the evening meal with care, each action performed deliberately. The clinking of wooden utensils and the gentle murmur of voices creates a soft, harmonious background, underscoring the quiet beauty of routine. Children sit attentively, learning through observation as older family members move with practiced grace, chopping, stirring, and distributing portions. Every action is deliberate, every gesture measured, each one a continuation of a tradition passed down over centuries. There is a sense here that life is not hurried, that every moment is to be observed, experienced, and valued. The blacksmith returns from the forge as the heat of the day diminishes, wiping sweat from his brow and setting tools in their places. Sparks still linger faintly in the air from earlier work, reflecting the last rays of sun through small windows. He pauses for a moment to observe the village square, noting the fading light on stone walls and the slow movements of neighbors finishing their labors. Even this pause is purposeful, a quiet reflection on the work completed and the day's accomplishments. The apprentice tidies the forge, following unspoken instructions and absorbing the rhythm of daily responsibility. It is in these small routines, repeated consistently over generations, that the essence of the village's endurance is revealed: dedication, care, and mindfulness in every action. Near the river, the water glistens with a soft luminescence, reflecting the fading sun in gentle ripples. Villagers gather briefly to check nets, tend to animals drinking from the banks, or simply observe the calm flow. Children play quietly along the edges, their laughter subdued as the day winds down. The river seems to slow in response to the waning light, its murmur a gentle accompaniment to the village's softening rhythm. The villagers' relationship with the river is one of respect and quiet intimacy, a recognition that its life-giving presence is integral to the continuation of their own. Every movement here is deliberate, performed with care and attention, reinforcing the harmony between human activity and nature's enduring flow. In the gardens, the last harvest of the day is gathered with careful hands. Herbs are clipped and laid to dry, vegetables placed in baskets, and the soil is gently tended one final time before nightfall. Women move through the rows methodically, observing each plant, adjusting supports, and removing any signs of disease or decay. Their movements are graceful and precise, almost meditative, as they work in harmony with the natural rhythm of growth and decay. Children assist where they can, learning the subtleties of care, the patience required, and the attention necessary to sustain life. These lessons, imparted through demonstration rather than instruction, become part of their very understanding of the world, ensuring the continuity of knowledge and practice across generations. The village square itself begins to quiet as evening approaches. Elders sit on benches, observing the subtle interplay of light, shadow, and motion across familiar spaces. Their presence is both comforting and instructive, offering guidance through observation, small gestures, or a softly spoken word. Young villagers pass by, pausing to acknowledge the wisdom before returning to their tasks or play. Every interaction, every glance, every nod is part of an unspoken dialogue that reinforces social cohesion and the understanding of communal roles. These small, deliberate acts, repeated over time, become the backbone of the village's enduring structure, binding people together in ways that are both functional and deeply human. By mid-evening, the communal ovens release the aroma of bread, roasted vegetables, and herbs, signaling that the evening meal is ready to be shared. Villagers assemble slowly, each movement deliberate, each step measured. Conversation is soft and purposeful, allowing everyone to speak and be heard, reinforcing the principles of patience, respect, and attentiveness. Food is distributed with care, portions adjusted thoughtfully, and moments are taken to offer guidance, share wisdom, or simply express gratitude. Meals are more than sustenance. They are ritual, reflection, and reinforcement of the social fabric that sustains life in this timeless community. Outside, lanterns are lit along the lanes, casting a warm, flickering glow that transforms familiar streets into a landscape of soft light and gentle shadow. The glow illuminates the stone walls, wooden doors, and trees, giving the village an almost ethereal quality. Villagers move along these pathways with quiet intent, completing minor tasks before nightfall, tending animals, or visiting neighbors briefly. The gentle illumination reinforces a sense of safety, continuity, and connection, turning the streets into spaces of reflection and calm as the day transitions into night. Near the chapel, a small group gathers for evening prayers, the candlelight flickering across stone walls and wooden pews. Their voices are soft, harmonizing with the subtle sounds of the evening, the murmur of the river, the rustle of leaves, the distant footsteps along lanes. These rituals are unhurried, intimate, and deeply rooted, providing a sense of grounding and continuity. Even the youngest villagers observe quietly, learning the cadence, tone, and rhythm of devotion. It is a moment of collective reflection, reinforcing both spiritual connection and the enduring rhythm of communal life. As the sun disappears behind distant hills, the valley is bathed in the deep blue and silver tones of twilight. The village breathes softly, its heartbeat slow and measured, synchronized with the natural cycles of day and night. Windows glow warmly, chimneys exhale thin streams of smoke, and the faint hum of conversation drifts through the lanes. Children prepare for bed, their laughter softened, their energy mellowed, while adults complete the final tasks of the day, ensuring that every responsibility is attended to with care. In these moments, the village embodies the quiet dignity of continuity, balance, and presence. Walking through the lanes, you notice the subtle interplay of light, shadow, and movement that defines the village at dusk. Every doorway, window, and garden tells a story of centuries-long continuity, of human presence intertwined with the natural world. The night has fully settled over the village, the sky a deep velvet black, studded with 1,000 stars. There is a stillness here, almost sacred in its quietude, as though the entire world holds its breath. The moon casts a gentle, silver light across the landscape, revealing the soft undulations of the hills surrounding the valley, and casting long, haunting shadows over the stone cottages and thatched roofs. The wind has died down, leaving only the faint rustle of leaves and the distant call of a night bird. The village seems suspended in time, as if caught in a moment of eternal calm. Inside the homes, the warmth of the hearths continues to radiate, flickering softly against the encroaching darkness. The rhythmic sound of wood burning, crackling, and popping is a steady background to the quiet conversations, the light hums of lullabies, and the soft movements of those winding down from a long day's work. The children, now asleep in their beds, rest quietly under the weight of the day's lessons. Lessons in labor, in love, in belonging. The elders sit in their chairs by the fire, their faces relaxed in a peaceful familiarity, as they reflect upon the day, exchanging words only when necessary, enjoying the comfort of each other's presence. The rhythm of the village's existence is mirrored in the stillness of the night. Outside, the village is bathed in a quiet tranquility, each stone and beam glowing with an almost ethereal light under the moon's gaze. The lamps that line the streets flicker gently, casting elongated shadows that dance across the cobblestones. There is no rush, no anxiety in the air. Instead, there is a quiet sense of completeness, as though the village has, for a brief moment, synchronized with the rhythm of the universe itself. It is a moment where time slows, and every individual breath feels like part of a much larger, timeless exhale. The river, always present, carries on its steady path, its flow unbroken by the night's descent. The water gleams in the moonlight, a continuous thread weaving through the valley, unhurried, unwavering. The sounds of the night are subtle, the soft murmur of water, the distant chirping of crickets, the occasional rustle of wind through the trees, but they combine into a lullaby, comforting and gentle. These sounds seem to speak of a world in harmony, where the passage of time is measured not in minutes or hours but in the enduring cycles of nature. The village, nestled in the valley, exists in symbiosis with this timeless flow. In the silence of the night, the village feels like a living entity, breathing slowly, deeply, contentedly. The homes stand like sentinels, each one a small universe of its own, yet all bound together by the invisible threads of tradition, continuity, and the shared rhythm of life. The stillness of the night is not an absence, but a presence, a moment of pause between the pulse of day and night, a brief space where the labors of the waking hours are laid to rest. This is the essence of life in the village, a slow, deliberate pace, where time is not something to be rushed through but something to be felt, savored, and experienced in its fullness. The calm of the night speaks not just to the quiet of the world but to the deep peace that settles in the hearts of those who call this place home. Here, there is no need for distraction or escape. The peace is inherent, woven into every action, every interaction, every gesture. It is a reminder that the most profound moments of life are often the quietest ones, when the world slows, and we are left with only the steady rhythm of our own existence. In the stillness, the village continues, not in a rush but in a soft, enduring pulse. This is the rhythm of life, a rhythm built on the understanding that existence, in its truest form, does not need to be loud or fast. It simply needs to be present. And in this village, under the moonlit sky, presence is everything. The evening has fully descended now, and the village, bathed in the soft glow of lanterns, has settled into its nighttime rhythm. The sounds of the day, footsteps on cobblestone, the murmur of voices, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer, have quieted. The only sounds now are the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze, the distant call of an owl, and the soft, steady flow of the river that weaves through the village. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of fresh earth and the warm, comforting smoke of hearths burning. Lanterns flicker along narrow streets, casting pools of golden light that reflect off the stone walls, highlighting the textures of the centuries-old buildings and the worn pathways that stretch like veins through the village. The lantern light creates a sense of intimacy, as though the entire village is cocooned in a shared, collective embrace of warmth and quiet comfort. As the evening deepens, the rhythm of the village shifts from labor to rest, but even sleep is not rushed. Villagers continue their small rituals, lighting final lanterns, securing shutters, checking animals one last time, and tidying spaces before heading inside. The pace is deliberate, grounded, as though every action, no matter how small, carries significance in maintaining the harmony of the village. In the houses, families gather in quiet corners, some reading by the light of a small fire, others reflecting in the stillness of the night. Even the children, now tired from the day's work and play, retreat to their beds with a quiet, settled sense of belonging. It is in these final moments of the day that the true power of continuity is felt. Nothing is hurried, nothing is forced. The day closes with a gentle hand, as if the earth itself is taking a deep breath before the world begins again. Out on the hills surrounding the village, the last rays of the sun disappear behind the horizon, leaving only the soft glow of twilight and the rising moon. The air is cooler now, a reminder that the seasons will inevitably change, but the rhythm of life remains unbroken. The silence here feels almost sacred. Time seems to stretch and pause, and in the stillness, you sense the quiet endurance of the village, its roots sunk deep into the earth. In this place, continuity is not a concept but a living, breathing reality that persists through the cycles of day and night, season after season, generation after generation. The night promises rest, but even as the village sleeps, there is a quiet knowledge that tomorrow will bring the same slow, deliberate rhythm, the same care, attention, and harmony that have sustained this place for centuries. The village is a microcosm of resilience, a reminder that in a world ever-changing, there is beauty in the persistence of the familiar, in the power of repetition and care. The village sleeps under a sky now deep with the weight of the stars. The distant glow of the moon casts long shadows over rooftops, creating a landscape of peaceful quiet. Within the homes, the hearths burn low, their flickering embers casting a soft, warm light across sleeping faces. The night air is crisp, with the faintest trace of wood smoke, and the world outside is still, as though holding its breath in the quiet hours between dusk and dawn. Even in sleep, the rhythm of the village persists, a subtle, unbroken flow of continuity that feels as ancient as the land itself. Time here moves not in minutes or hours, but in moments of gentle reflection, connection, and quiet devotion to the cycle of life. The world may sleep, but the village lives, perpetually at peace with the rhythms of nature and history.